You bringing that up, and that's obviously something that hits very close to home to me, and I think it's something that you're not alone in feeling like these identities can run up against each other really frequently. And we went to school together, so you know that when I was in college, the Black community was my everything. I was not a campus feminist by any means. I was all Black community, like radical Black activism, like Black power, like those were my people. And it was actually through that experience of being in that community and caring so much and seeing the way that different issues galvanized folks of color and young people of color, and feeling like there was a gap that I really was called to fill around what happens when, who shows up when the gender issue comes up, and really wanting to kind of spread an ability and an increased interest in having, folks show up around issues relating to Black women in the same way that I was called to show up to issues relating to Black men in the Black community and, all of these different social justice issues. And it can be very, very difficult because, as we've already raised on this panel, and as you're touching on, when someone like Bill Cosby is being attacked in the media, that's someone who for a long time was a Black icon, a Black hero, an image of respectability in the Black community, and someone that we kind of hitched our horse to. And so it can be very painful, and it can feel very difficult to watch that hero fall in a public view. And I think we all need to allow a little bit of nuance and compassion around these issues, and to not need to say it is one way. It's not all gender. It's not all race. Black women, we exist, and we're able to fight for women's rights and the rights of Black people together. And actually, with Black Lives Matter, it was 3 queer women of color who started that movement, started that hashtag. Yes, thank you. Yes. So I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the contributions of women of color to the space of Black activism and racial justice work, which Jamil has been doing for a really long time. And I think oftentimes those contributions don't get seen as well. So it can be very difficult, and I just appreciate you raising that issue in this space.
If I could briefly add to that, as a Black woman living at that intersection of racism and sexism, it can be extremely painful. And I think because this is an audience that looks to be from where I'm sitting, primarily white women, I'd like to just kind of highlight something that we go through that you may not be aware of, in hopes that it's something you take away from this powerful conversation, these wonderful things that these ladies have said. Oftentimes we feel like we're fighting with our men, with Black men, for them to see what sexism is, and to see how it impacts women of all races, because sometimes they can't see past the privilege that white women have to acknowledge sexism and how it impacts you all. And they can't see that there's a specific brand of sexism that impacts us, because we're not just facing it when you go out into the work world and we're dealing with white men, right? We're also dealing with it at home, with the men that we typically live amongst, who are Black men, right? And the particular set of privileges and advantages that they have over us, despite the challenges that they face as Black men, that's something that's incredibly difficult for them to face and to understand. And then when we go into spaces with white women, and there's this kind of blanketed conversation about feminism that isn't always intersectional, which means we're not acknowledging class privilege, race privilege, ability privilege, educational privilege, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times we feel that these conversations are not centered around us in any sort of meaningful way. And Black women have been so essential to the feminist movement, from Sojourner Truth to Bell Hooks to Michelle Wallace to Melissa Harris. Close your eyes and think of a feminist, that image is not always that of us. And that's why it's so difficult for people like Lori and I to compel Black women to identify as feminists. Because they think of it as being a space that has not